What is that thing you like to do? What is your calling? Let me not go into that. I want to take comments and reactions. And to start with the comments and reactions, I want to call on Dr. Janice Sabani to make some comments as regards this presentation. Please, ma'am. The microphone, okay, let me bring this for her.
Thank you for your request, giving honor and recognition for the protocol that has been stated. It was a wonderful presentation, Barrister. I was very impressed with your accomplishments and the achievements that you have done over the short period of time that you've been engaged. And it was very empowering, and I would love to see that duplicated in the Silicon Valley. Many of the attributes that and the resources that are here in Nigeria, I revere the tenacity and the fortitude and the intelligence and the emotional intelligence that you mentioned in particular, I think is something that should be recognized and acknowledged, because without that connection and that sense of empathy and understanding and being able to harness that and move your initiative forward and developing your passion, identifying your passion and developing your purpose. We live with intent, and I believe that that truly will motivate us to move forward and to take action, as stated yesterday, declaring that we will make change in the world and transform lives. Well said. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I'm going to go from here to ask Professor Amos Alao to also make his comment concerning this presentation. All we have heard since yesterday is about inclusion, and Prof would like to, okay, you have a mic there.
Thank you, Director of Ceremonies. I sincerely want to thank Barrister Wolo for this beautiful presentation. You've shown us from your own life the need to struggle, not to give up, despite obstacles, intimidation, and maybe challenges, which we should all buy. I must say that I want to congratulate the organizers of this conference. Let me say that, and then most especially, you've worked hard to come up with this conference. The first day, I was expecting the hall to be full, but I said, where are the women in Covenant University? But remember one thing, when Jesus would go up to the prayer, he would tell Peter, James, and John, not all the disciples. Those of you here, you've done the needful by kickstarting this emancipation of women. Please let us give ourselves a round of applause. And I sincerely want to thank the chairperson, Professor Isaiah Obanya. She has been an inspiration. You see, in many emancipation of the struggle of people, women are in the forefront. I was speaking to Janice yesterday about my experience in the United States. When this lady refused to stand up from the bus in Selma, Alabama, it gave the rise up for this discrimination to stop. You can go on and on and on. Women have been playing important role. I'm happy you talk about Oprah Winfrey. She built a secondary school for girls in South Africa. And when we look back to our own country, we have the likes of Mary Opo, Mrs. Rasom Kuti, who had fought faithfully for the emancipation of women's rights. And of recent, we have the likes of Ezekwesili Obiageli, bring back our girls. And in education, we cannot forget Professor Lele Williams and our indefatigable Professor Isaac Obanya, two-time Vice Chancellor, Covenant University, Landmark University. I think she deserves a round of applause in women in leadership in education. My says that please continue. And I'm happy Barrister Wolo said that we need to support, women need to support women. Look, for presidential candidates, you need 45 million. APC say to be a presidential candidate, you should bring 45 million. Why 45 million? You say, and our women, the best they will ask them to do is to be deputy governor. You think that maybe after being deputy governor, you'll be elevated to be the governor, but it's not happening. So this is why we need to support one another. And I'm happy you talk about the empowerment of women. It is disheartening to know that Nigeria is 122nd in women empowerment, whereas countries like Rwanda, they are number 4. The question is, what are we doing? And from your professional experience, what will you advise? Policy is different from legislation. We can have policies on the empowerment of women, but where are the legislation to back this policy up? And this is one area, maybe from your own legal profession, you can advise and guide women. And I think so far so good. This is a good beginning, and we should just continue, and one day we are going to get there. And I think the reality is that people want to discriminate for their own advantage. Like you gave us the example of the Muslim who was not qualified, but you stood your ground. And this is why the advocacy is very important. I want to thank you, and it's very illuminating and very encouraging. But what I'll say in short is that the journey of 100 miles begins with a step. You started with the right step, organizing this conference. Don't give up. Continue to support one another, and the goal will be achieved. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof, for your comments. I believe that if only one woman, in the person of Barrister Timipris Wolo, could achieve this much, if all of us present here would take steps and begin to pursue our passion, then we will do much more. And so we're going somewhere. I believe that Professor Funmilayo Obamake from UNILAG would like to make some comments. So please.
Thank you very much, Director, for your belief. You believed rightly. I want to say a big thank you to Barrister Wolo, and I just want to refer to a few of the points she made and what I got from those points and what I think I can share. One of the first things that came across to me was the emphasis she placed on education. You know, and what I got is that the benefits of a woman's education transcend her. You know, it could actually lead to transgenerational or intergenerational implications or benefits for others. And that's why we can never emphasize female education enough. I mean, you can't have too much of education. And living education, now coming to socialization, she made a point about getting girls early. Actually, as she was speaking, I actually put down STEM, starting it early, and then she went to that point. I was very delighted. But I want to say that the content of gender socialization must change. And the duty, the onus rests on all caregivers, whether parents, even teachers, those who are responsible for primary socialization. We can't leave it to chance. It must be deliberate, purposive, intentional socialization. In knowing that you need to correct what had gone on in the past, you know, in terms of canalization, which she referred to, buying specific toys for children and so on. So I think gender socialization, gender learning is very important for both boys and girls, but for girls more because of the need to change. Also in her presentation, she didn't quite use the word, but it came out that tokenism, something that happens often, to women. But I'm not one of those who oppose tokenism. I believe that when a woman has a chance to get to a particular place, what she needs to do is to utilize that particular opportunity to enhance, other women, which is what she has done from the various examples we have seen here. So instead of us to say, well, they're just putting only one woman there, that one woman should see herself being there, not for herself, but for other women and other people who are less privileged or marginalized in one way or the other. And that leads on to advocacy. Now, for advocacy, you don't need UN platform to start advocacy. You can begin advocacy right in your own corner. Wherever you find yourself, speak out, and don't just let it go. She gave a very good example of, women who spoke up. I think that is key. And then lastly for me, another point I think she made, which I liked, is that for us as women, we must keep records. We must keep records. Wherever you work, whether it's in any particular industry or even in the academia, you must keep records. I was very impressed by what she said about the position. I wanted to go to someone else, which I think Prof was also referring to. If she didn't know that there had been a precedence, she would just have accepted. So what point am I trying to make? Women must increasingly question or interrogate what seems like norms. Oh, that's the way it's done. You must question, and if you don't have records, it will be very difficult. If you don't know that this had happened before, and when it happened, it was used in somebody's advantage, to somebody's advantage. Now, when it comes up and it's going to be a woman, you just bring out your records. This was done before. This, know the rules. Be familiar with your terrain and know your onions. And, of course, lastly, be passionate. So I want to thank you once again, and I want to thank the organizers, and personally I've been impacted. It helps when you hear people validating some things, that you relearn and learn again. And I think for us all, we must find something to take away from this gathering if we are paying attention. Thank you once again. God bless you.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you very much. While Prof was talking, I saw Dr. Angela Eni nodding and nodding. That tells me that she has something to say. So please give her the microphone.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Barrister Wolo, you're living my dreams. I need to come chat with you. Last week we had a couple of courses in the university, and when I spoke to the people attending the mentoring course, I said to them, once you work with this team and work out your purpose roadmap, is an activity in one of the training. I said to them, once you work out your purpose roadmap, what it did for me in 2015 when I had the chance to do that is it sets you on autopilot and you're running. You wake up in the morning knowing what is driving you. And then, I looked through everything you were talking about when I came in. You're living my dreams, and well done. Please, shall we put our hands together again for her? Well done. And by the way, I met some of your people. In 2016, I think 2 of your students were in the University of East Anglia. I met them. They were finishing and wondering what step. They were girls. I met them in church. So it's beautiful what you're doing. And you've said everything. There isn't much to be added. You said everything that needs to be said this morning. But what I want to stress is what you said about supporting. I mentioned that yesterday during the dinner. Because of some demands on us as women, we get caught up at some point, some critical point in our career. And those points are make or break points. So for women in leadership positions, you must put your feet down and push for some things. I had a mentor. When I had my first daughter, she went into that meeting and she said to them, I don't care what you do, I need a crèche in ITA. This girl needs to be supported. And a crèche was put right next to the clinic. So she needs me to be fully attentive when I come to work, but she did something about it. So if we find ourselves in places where we can speak up, she spoke up for many people. She's transformed life. That is the best legacy you can leave. How many lives did you transform? How many lives did you affect positively? What would you be remembered for? She's done so much. I'm just so excited for this to finish. I need a break and have a lot of chats and take back some of my dreams that she's leaving. Well, well done. Congratulations. I look forward to reading more about your stories and the things you achieve in the future. And for the rest of us, as we become passionate about empowering others, we'll see each other at the top. At the top. Education is the key. And by the way, when you have something and you share it, it doesn't leave you. It becomes multiplied. It becomes multiplied. We need to learn that and begin to give out a lot of things that are inside of us. Congratulations again, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. So much emphasis on education. I was reading an article, and I read from that article that when you train a girl, a female child, you're training a whole community that extends to the nation and the world at large. I also saw something in that article that says that education begins from the home, and that this child, this girl child that you have educated, is the one that begins to train, to educate her children and other children in the society. So women, please, let's arise. Let's arise to educate our children. She mentioned something while the presentation was going on, and I started thinking towards a direction. She talked about us giving our girl children dolls, and then we give toy cars, we give toy airplanes, we give toy computers to the male children. We are already educating the girl child to become a baby maker, to become a home keeper. Yes, we will be home keepers, but we should begin to orientate our children from that level, you know, to becoming whatever a boy can become. Let's begin to give them toy cars, toy airplane, and toy computers, and they will become that which we desire, that which we dream for women to become in our society. We'll take comments, more comments, and I want to say that if you have comments, please just indicate by raising up your hand. We'll take all your comments, but at the end of all of our comments, the host, our mentor, and role model will cap it all. So if we have comments, we have questions, we have reactions, let's indicate so we can have them all. Don't we have comments? Don't we have questions? Did I see a hand? Okay. In the absence of other comments from the floor, I want to respectfully give the microphone to... Oh. Okay. Okay, she stepped out, I guess, to do one or two other things. Okay, if we have taken all of our comments and there are no other comments, please let's note what we have taken from this presentation and hold on to it and run with it. She said faith and action. Faith without works is dead. We'll be having a group photograph. We'll be having a group photograph right away, after which we'll go for the tea break. And then when we go for tea break, we will move to to have the parallel sessions. This is 11:28. We have 30 minutes for our tea break. 30 minutes for the tea break. So by 12, we should be heading for the venues where we had our parallel sessions yesterday. And then the parallel session will last for 30 minutes. And then we'll go for lunch. That is by 12:30, we'll go for lunch. And then have lunch for another 30 minutes. By 1 o'clock, we reconvene for a wrap-up session. So, can we have the photographs, Barrister Ma? Let's have all our presenters. Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure, Ma, that you would like to respond to all of the things that have been said. I think there was an oversight.
I think the only question was raised by Professor Lau. He had asked about how we can get women to, how we can influence legislation and not just policy. You asked that, right? Okay. Actually, what I said was, because it's not enough to have policies, though, which are not backed up by legislation. So what I was saying was having policies that are actually backed up by legislation. For instance, women in Nigeria we've been advocating for affirmative action. Now, because it's not even backed up by any legislation whatsoever, it is now left for any president who is gender-friendly at his discretion, totally at his discretion, to either increase the number of women in his cabinet or appoint women in parastatals and all that. But if we're able to have that enshrined in our laws, that becomes enforceable, whether you are a gender-friendly president or a non-gender-friendly president. At that point, you would have no choice because it will no longer be at your discretion to make that decision. It has become part of the laws. And that's why I emphasize that we need to have more women in not just politics generally, but specifically in the National Assembly, because that's the law-making agency. Currently, we have just about 7 senators, I think, female senators in the National Assembly. House of Reps, I think just 21 women in the House of Reps. So that's a very, 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 very tiny little number compared to the number of men. And I see that the women have been, a few of them have been speaking up. A few of them have been speaking up. But imagine being in a situation like that where you are like 1.0 or 0.1% amongst the men. I believe strongly that if we have more women in the National Assembly, they will be able to influence some of those laws. Because we actually need the laws, not just the policies, which, could be, left at the whims and caprices of whoever is in power. So that's why we need to take action by getting involved now. 2019 is around the corner. I was shocked to see that more than half of the women in this room do not even have their PVCs. So I mean, that's disheartening. How can we bring about this change if we don't even have the little voters registration card that will make us eligible to at least exercise our rights? It's our right to vote. So if we're not voting, who is going to vote in the women if women are not voting? Who is going to vote in the women? So that's a challenge I'm throwing to everybody in this room. If you're not going to be involved in active politics because of all the troubles that goes with it, if you're just going to be out there, you can also just throw in your support. Just throw in your support by voting or supporting a woman who is actually contesting. So that's one way we can address that issue. Let's get more women in politics, in policy-making positions, in law-making positions, and change the narrative from there.
Put our hands together. Let's put our hands together for that response. Thank you very much, Barrister Wolo. Now we'll go back to taking the photographs. I'd like to invite Professor Amos Alao for photographs. I'd like also to invite Professor Fumilayo Pamake Unilag, Dr. Angela Eni, Dr. Jani Samani. A group photograph, and then we'll take an all-inclusive photograph.
Somebody take my phone.